everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Thanks everyone for joining. We're going to be covering aspects of enterprise security within Google Workspace today, and I'm really glad you can all jump on. I'll keep this beginning section pretty brief. As I said, we've got quite a lot of content to cover, so a bit of housekeeping. I'm sure you're all well aware of this by now, having probably joined 1,000 webinars in 2020. Please, could you ensure that your mute is on? I'm pretty throughout the webinar. It would be really useful just to cancel out any background noise, etc. We're going to be recording this for distribution, so you'll all receive a copy at the end. I hope that's okay with everyone. And if you have any questions, please copy the link at the top of the slide, and we will endeavour to cover as many of these at the end as possible. If that for some reason doesn't work for you, you can always use the chat facility to the right-hand side. So today's speakers, I'll do a little bit of a round robin so everyone can introduce themselves briefly. I'll start with myself. My name is Alex Munro, and I work as part of the Google Cloud sales team here at NetPremacy, essentially bringing on board new customers and taking them on their digital transformation journey using Google Cloud. And I'll pass over to Andy, if that's all right, so you can start a sort of clockwise motion. We can all do a brief introduction.
Certainly. So thank you, Alex, and good morning, everyone. So my name is Andy Kennedy, and I am part of the Google Cloud security and compliance team.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin Jordan, Head of Technical Operations at NetPremacy. Great to see you, so many people on the call here. I'll hand over to Nick.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. My name is Nick. I'm part of the customer success team here at NetPremacy, and yeah, I'll hand back to Alex now.
Nice and brief, guys. Okay, today's agenda. So I've already been through the introduction. I'm going to pass initially over to Andy, who's going to run through security at the core, essentially from the Google aspect of things. And then we're going to pass over to Kevin, who's going to look at operational security, so the proactive and reactive security aspects. We're going to then move swiftly on to remote working and endpoint security. It's going to be delivered by Nick. Just to how to keep your employees secure while everyone's remote working. I'm going to do a brief section following on from that around compliance in Google Workspace, how Google Workspace can assist when you're striving for compliance standards, and then we'll have a roundup at the end with Q&A. So I'm not going to labour too long on this. I'm aware that a lot of people on the call will know who NetPremacy are, but for those that don't, I just wanted to give a brief introduction to who we are. NetPremacy are a Google Premier partner. We have been for over a decade now. We work in line with Google Cloud, but very independently as well. So we have our own in-house teams, so whether change management support, CSS, accounts, delivery, etc., etc. So we help organisations really take them through from the beginning to the end, and then for the foreseeable for their digital transformation journey, whether that is with Google Workspace or Google Cloud in general. So we're Google's go-to trusted partner in the UK for Google Workspace, and we were actually awarded 2019 Premier Partner of the Year award for Work Transformation Enterprise, essentially solidifying the work that we've done in the workspace arena. And in doing so, we've built the largest Google Workspace practice within EMEA and boasting some huge household names that you'll probably be aware of, which leads us nicely on to the next slide. It's again a little bit of a boasting slide, but we do value each and every one of our customers, and it sort of gives you an insight into the variety of different industries that we work with, and we're very much vertical agnostic, so we work across the board, whether that's from private to public to small, medium, and enterprise. We work with everybody. So from then, I know it's very, very brief, but we've got a lot of content to cover, so I'm going to pass over to Andy.
Thank you very much, Alex. And I'd love to extend our welcome from Google to all of those who have joined us today. And also a big shout out and thanks to our friends at NetPremacy for inviting us to be part of today's session. So I think that one of our observations, maybe at a macro level, as we work with clients and organizations of all sizes, is that even before the circumstances of this year became apparent, there were already some macro level changes and trends that we were seeing in the industry. And really, I think what we've seen over the course of the last, 9 or 10 months has been an acceleration of some of that change. But if as you go into a presentation such as the one we're covering today, you tend to look back at maybe previous talks you've given, and you look at your prior slides. And there were a couple of things that it kind of leapt out to me a little bit. And maybe there's a little bit of a story here that I'll share with you, and it might resonate with some of you in the call today. So I came into the industry about, I guess, 24, 25 years ago now. And back then, one of the things that we saw was the fact that you were given a laptop or a desktop, and you would have on that device discrete applications for your word processor, for your spreadsheet, for your email, for your browser. And you would effectively see collaboration in two ways. One would be through conference calls. And the second would be you would create a static document, you would attach it to an email, and you would send that to a colleague. And they would then edit that document, reattach it to another email, and send it back to you. Now, of course, we're all a little bit wary of opening unknown attachments and obviously having to keep your software up to date. So that predicated the need for things like antivirus and anti-malware. But of course, then what you would do is you would need to obviously share that or host those files centrally. So then you would, launch another piece of software for a VPN, and you would effectively extend the data center network out to that device that you were using for your day-to-day work. And one of the things that we saw was the fact that all of these things were all protected behind the thing that we all love, the password. So for the last, number of decades, I guess now we've been working in our industry, the password has been the kind of canonical kind of authentication token that we've had. Now, clearly, there's a number of changes that have happened in the last 25 years. I've been in the industry, but for some of you, actually, that IT model might actually sound pretty familiar, because we still meet clients today that still have those discrete packages for those different applications. We still see the concerns around business email compromise and ransomware. We still see the challenges around password reuse and phishing and compromised passwords, leading to then data breaches that can occur, and we've seen in the press. Maybe the only thing that's changed is maybe we needed yet another piece of software to do video conferencing. Now, at Google, one of the things that we've learned and we've embodied, and I think some of you on the call today might have already begun to adopt, is the fact there is a different way to address the needs for end user compute. And that way is maybe to think about actually what can we do using modern web-based technologies, and what can we do through the security model of the browser. And if we use the security model of the browser, and if I may ask to go to the next slide, please, what we can do is we can basically bring all of these applications together and serve them in a safe and secure way. But it is predicated on the security model of that browser. Now, the good thing there is that I struggle to think of a single piece of application software that exists in our industry today that has been through more scrutiny, more analysis, that is based on an open source origin so people can look at the source code, than the browser. It's the thing that we rely on for our financial well-being. It's the thing that we rely on for our personal aspirations, personal inflictions. It's the thing that effectively, when we go into the Google search and we type in the things that concern us on a day-to-day basis, it's the window into all of those thoughts and ideas. So using that security model, and we've seen it tested and tested and tested again, we can then rely on things like sandboxing within the browser. We can rely on a lot of the standards-based communications technologies that we see within the browser. So, for example, the web real-time communication, which allows people to join Google Meet today without having to download and install separate bits of software. But also it brings new artifacts as well, standards-based authentication methods that allow us to use security keys that we'll talk about a little bit later, so that these are phishing-resisting or phishing-resistant credentials that you can use to validate the authentication process, not only of the user, but also the thing that you're authenticating to, in a way that, since they were introduced at Google, we've never had a single account compromised since those keys were introduced. So with all of this in mind, I think what we saw was this rapid acceleration to the adoption of technology in the last 10 months. And of course, video conferencing has been a big part of that. And today you see that through Google Meet. And I think one of the things that we seek to do is to share with you some of the controls and capabilities that were built into not only Google Meet, but also Google Workspace as a general platform to help promote the way that we can collaborate, the way we can communicate amongst our teams, our colleagues, such that ultimately we can improve the overall security, hygiene, and posture of an organization. So with that in mind, if I can maybe ask to talk to the next slide, please. As we bring all of this together, one of the things we've learned over the years is actually delivering that in a unified way is key to being able to remove the friction, to be able to do things in a consistent, seamless manner. And with that, we've introduced our latest iteration of our collaboration suite. We call it Google Workspace. And within that, Obviously, there are a number of productivity benefits, but it also comes with a whole raft of security controls for you to be able to protect the integrity of your data and the privacy of the information you hold. And with that, I'm going to hand over to our colleague Kevin, who's going to basically walk us through a little bit about some of those controls that exist within the Google Workspace platform. So with that in mind, I'll hand over to Kevin, and thank you for your patience this morning. Listen to the chat. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Really insightful there. Yeah, thanks again. Yeah, so for this section, as Alex mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be exploring two avenues of security within Google Workspace. So the proactive side and the reactive measures that are available. And first, we'll take a look at the proactive side, or the prevention of issues. These are the tools that you can use to protect your environment and really reduce the risk of both malicious threats and accidental exposure. And we're going to start by looking at mail here, as you can see. So to represent the protection available, we can follow the journey of an email at each step and where there's a defense mechanism. So starting immediately with the initial connection into your environment, mail authentication and encryption checks on the sending domain begins to determine the legitimacy of the source of the email. And then as we move on to the pre-delivery stage, you have the configurable safety settings to perform enhanced scans and checks to ensure the content itself is actually legitimate. And these initial measures are really important because it's actually safeguarding exposure to the recipient, i.e. your end users. So it's trying to filter out where possible before it even reaches the mailbox. And then we look at the actions of a user, from opening the email to provide clear warning banners of anything deemed to be suspicious, and then on to include what's actually included in that email. And many of these have actually been checked at the pre-delivery stage, as we've mentioned, but there's a secondary layer of defense once it's actually in the hands of the user. For example, attachment protection or link clicks, and even where those may lead to, as represented on the right there, with password entry and granting access to all services. And it doesn't stop there for the protection that you have available. This continues all the way to replying all the outbound activities of the email, and ensuring you're protecting data leaving your organization as well, to the point of a full cycle of ensuring mail authentication is applied on your domain, so SPF, DKIM, and DMARC there as well. If you could just jump onto the next slide there for me, Alex. Perfect. And just to give you a very quick representation of what the end user experience is, we just wanted to show you some of the warning banners that they would see, or some of the link click banners that they would see, also highlighted with a color for severity. And as we move on, we next look at the protection of data and the services that your users actually have access to. And in a similar format, we take a look at the kind of step-by-step of each element that's at play when accessing data within Google Workspace, from the user in question to the device that they'll be using, and then onto the browser itself. With all of these come many configurable policies to ensure that they align with the business's stance on each, which no doubt Nick will touch on in a little more detail later. But once we kind of get through those initial few stages, we get to the actual entry point, so the authentication into the platform. And with this, we can take all those previous elements to feed into the contextual aware access rules engine to make decisions on what services your user groups can gain access to. And another useful method of protection at this stage is obviously two-step verification as well. A really simple preventative to phishing attacks. From that point on, you're looking at the actual policies you apply to your applications and services, whether they're native to Google Workspace, or it's a method of access to a third-party solution, for example, through SAML. And that final piece is the data management itself, ensuring only the relevant people should have access to the content in question. This could be through dedicated shared drives, through data loss prevention to protect exfiltration, and some more recent controls like visitor sharing allowing you to collaborate safely with non-Google users with the use of a PIN code. Perfect. So if there's one takeaway that I'd recommend as a good starting place to protect your users, I'd say this: two-step verification. It's probably one of the most simple methods of protecting your business from what is potentially a poor user decision, which in turn serves to protect that user as much as it does your company's data. And this isn't actually the fault of the user. Not everyone's up to speed on the latest phishing attacks or what the new kind of trend is in that area, but it's within your control to help prevent that. So next we'll take a look at the reactive side, or the remediation of issues. And for this, we're going to look at the security center that Google introduced within the last couple of years. They've continued to build upon this to provide us with a robust set of enterprise tools to enhance the security within a workspace environment. But when we talk about remediation of issues, there's no better than the investigation tool. And when you pair that with the Alert Center for highlighting those immediate risks, I'm going to show you in a few clicks just how we can get a broad visibility of an impending issue, remediate that problem, and also stop a further outbreak. And where we'll start with that is just an alert that's been triggered that you can see here. So this is a potential phishing attempt, which gives us some general information about that attempt. Like this has automatically been assigned a high severity as well. So what we do to actually investigate that is we would click on that go to the Alert Center button at the bottom just to take a deeper look. If you could just click on there. Thanks, Alex. Which takes us into the Alert Center itself here. And from here on the left, I can do things like change the severity if necessary, but I can also apply a status to show that it's been worked on and actually assign this alert to someone within the team. And at the bottom, we can also add some comments into the alert history, maybe provide some more context or even an internal case reference for our ticketing system. And these are really useful for collaborating on issues within your team. But let's move on to the actual investigation of this issue. And to do so, we'd click on that investigate alert button on the left there. So from here, we get a pre-populated search criteria and the results, obviously, that provide you with a broad visibility of anything related to that potential phishing email, whether it's an interaction with the potential with the email, like a link click, or even other users who might have received this email. And we can see both instances have actually happened in this example that we've got here. So what we do as an immediate action to this, as we want to reduce that potential further outbreak, is we select all and we can just immediately delete those emails, just a click of a button, which is really useful for those users who haven't even opened that spam email yet. And we'll definitely want to kind of investigate further on the account that has clicked the link in that email, in this case, just to make sure that it hasn't been compromised. But we'll no doubt have the peace of mind, at least, as I mentioned earlier, that two-step verification is in place to help prevent any unauthorized access if the credentials were stolen. And hopefully this is demonstrated quite well, the speed to resolution that you get through the investigation tool in just about 4 or 5 steps, which would no doubt have taken significantly longer with the tool prior to these tools being available at our disposal. So yeah, thanks a lot for your time. I just wanted to give a quick overview there. There was quite a few things that I took on those slides that I didn't obviously have time to touch on, so please feel free to drop in your questions into that question sheet. And just before I hand over, if you're wondering where to get started with your workspace environment, NetPremacy has written an in-depth white paper on this space for keeping your business secure. So we'll be sure to share that across as a follow-up to this session as well. And with that, I'll hand over to Nick, and thanks a lot for your patience, guys.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Kev. Yep, I'm just going to now go through a bit of remote working, how we can do that securely and how it sort of differs, and then a bit on endpoint security. So if you could just click on to the next one, thank you. Yeah, so our modern world is probably now quite a bit different to how we envisaged it being. Remote working has gone from being the occasional thing that we would allow people to do to being pretty much the norm. And going forward is probably going to continue to be the norm, maybe even overtake the number of people we have in the office. So the user journey in terms of security is, I think, very much different. Right from receiving the device and having to enroll it correctly and allow themselves access into that environment safely, to then setting up things like two-step verification. Like I've mentioned, this is a really key security step that we can take to just give really solid protection. In the office, that would usually be quite easy because your admin could just sit on your shoulder and make sure you got it done immediately. Now we're working from home, we need to make sure that we're enforcing this step and that it is built into our security processes right from the very beginning. And safe browsing habits for people, especially if they're using personal devices to work as well. Consider what they're browsing to. Are they browsing to secure websites? Are they paying attention to those warnings which Google has built in to protect the users? And breeding that good culture of how to surf the internet. And also safe working habits. One thing that I think sometimes is often overlooked with security is that it's not always about your hands-on device and what you're browsing to. It's thinking about now where you're working. If we're working remotely and we're handling sensitive information for our business, think about where we work, who can see what we're working, shoulder surfing, these old, almost, I suppose, might think outdated social engineering aspects of security do come into effect, and is something I think that we do need to consider again in the future. Thank you, read my mind. So what can admins do, whether you're an admin working in the office, having control over all of this, or you're in your own home and controlling all of this? Device management. Device management is a really, really powerful tool. If people have their own devices, does it have a work profile? Are you getting that correct segregation between their personal information, their personal data, and the work data, keeping it separate? Or is it a corporate device? And what kind of policies are we going to enforce here? So things such as browser extensions, are we going to block the majority of them and only allow specific ones which we know are 100% necessary, 100% secure, verified by Google? And you can do that through blocking and force installing browser extensions for people. And another one is session control. Control how long users have access to these Google services. If you're thinking that, do you really want your admin sessions to be infinite? They're never forced out, they don't have to relog. Consider that if they lose that device and you don't have session controls, well, someone now has access to everything. So think about restricting down these different groups to keep their sessions as short as you can, without being disruptive to their work, but keeping that constant secure authentication loop going. Next slide, please. So a quick bit on endpoint security. So this is securing those endpoints that everyone is using. Previously, probably not that big of a topic within some businesses, because everything is just within your own office. It's very, very easy to handle. You know exactly what you've got because you're the ones that buy those devices. Whereas now we have all different kinds of devices. You might never have had to manage Windows before. You might never have had to manage iOS before, but now these are new security challenges that are facing security teams. And you have to try and strike, I think, that balance between what's comfortable for your employees, what they're used to using, but what is also then secure and productive for your environment as a whole. And then bearing in mind also that you need to keep your corporate data secure and your applications secure at all times. It's especially with GDPR for those of us in Europe. Next slide, please. So some things that you can do. This is by no means an exhaustive list of everything that you can do. I don't think we really have enough time to go into everything, and I would be waffling for a long time to do it. But a few of the steps that you can do are things such as application whitelisting. Create this whitelist of work-specific applications that allows you then to manage what apps are on personal mobile devices, and then they can then have their own personal apps under their control, or prevent them from having things such as Pokemon Go on a work device. And there are really powerful tools within the admin console to do this, managing your API controls there, making sure that the correct things are trusted, that the correct things are blocked or limited in scope for what they have access to within your Google services. And I did touch on this, but work profiles, I think on Android devices, really important. Keep that separation. As much as you may trust your users and think that they wouldn't, if they lose that device, it starts to create headaches that could easily be avoided by something like a work profile where you can keep personal and work separate. For those in iOS environments, when you add apps to an iOS apps whitelist, you can make this a managed app so that you can prevent file sharing between managed and unmanaged apps on a device, so that there's no risk of that data exfiltration through things such as iCloud or iTunes, for example. Windows 10, the Windows 10 management tool is really powerful for securing Windows devices, managing what applications are on there, forcing through security updates. And you can also use the Google credential provider as well to help you manage the credentials for a Windows device that way. And of course, there is also the Chrome. If you're just using pure Chromebooks and you're 100% on the Google train, then that's easily done as well through the admin console. Google provides us these really powerful tools. There's defense in depth built into the Chrome devices that help to protect us against malware through sandboxing, through their safe boot, through their shortcut, which can allow you to reboot your Chromebook back to a known sort of golden image state. So there are some other tools as well, but I don't want to labor on in depth about all of them at once. There is also the Endpoint verification tool, which is a Google product, which you can use, which can help you build an inventory of all the devices within your organization and see what is accessing your data, to allow you to better audit your environment, keep an eye on things from a sort of a higher level, and then depending on what happened, any events, then you can drill down on a more granular level using tools like Kevin highlighted with the investigation tool, or using it as part of a full context-aware access solution, which is a very, very deep topic. But for example, you can, with remote working now, you could start to geo-restrict users on where they can access the work data from, or base trust levels based upon the risk that a device presents and its access to your network. So there are all these tools which individually are very, very powerful, but you put them together and it creates this defense in depth, which we have for users, but also for admins to allow you to keep your environment secure. I believe that is my last slide. So thank you very much for listening to me drone on. Alex, over to you.
Thanks very much. As you can imagine, the security features that are available in Google Workspace are huge, and to cover off absolutely everything would take us not just hours, days. So I hope that's given a brief sort of overview as to some of the features that are available, some interesting features that are available within the Google Workspace stack, then the infrastructure as a whole, I guess, that can keep your business secure while you're remote working. But I want to take a different sort of stance on it and take a look at sort of the business side of it and the compliance standards. I wanted to take a look at the two most vital standards that I feel anyway, that are prominent in the UK economy, which is GDPR, which I'm sure we're all sick of hearing about, and ISO 27001 as well. So I think GDPR, as much as it's been slung around and we're seeing some substantial fines, and everyone's probably had a billion cold calls about this GDPR, box that can suddenly make you compliant and et cetera, but I think the concept as a whole, it's really brought the concept back onto the table for risk and data protection and IT security and cyber security, and it's made everyone rethink the way that we look at it. So data protection is definitely now seen throughout the organisation. It's not just a legal or an IT issue, but it's also given a lot of gravitas to the complexity of the issue to hand, and how utilising cloud services such as Google Cloud and Google Workspace can definitely help organisations on the way to becoming and discovering their compliance. So whether it's discovering the data that they have and organising that data and protecting that data and putting that into tangible charts and things to feed back on, as much as it's not a silver bullet, it's really helped organisations that I've seen, understand what they've got and been able to organise that to becoming, compliant. And Google provides a variety of different services to help the controller of that data become compliant. So whether that's looking at the enterprise SKU and data regions, or deletion and retention of that data and other security standards. But I think it was just a really good point to know that if you are adhering to maybe standards other than GDPR or anything that you're finding difficult, reach out to Google, reach out to Net Primacy, and we've got a lot of things that we can do to help you on your way. The second standard I wanted to sort of briefly have a look at was ISO 27001. So as you'll be aware, any data that you put into Google, whether that's GCP, the common infrastructure, the workspace, Chrome, Apogee, they're all certified and compliant to 27001. And I think 27001 is probably the most prominent of data protection standards internationally, with about 114 controls in 14 different categories, and it guides organizations through creating what's called an ISMS, which is an information security management system, which is complex at best. So ISO covers not just the IT function, but it covers, compliance, supplier relationships, physical security, and so on. And the compliance standards, it systematically looks at people, process, and technology, and not just one on its own, which we've found in the past that a lot of information security standards just look at, do you have a firewall? Tick. Do you patch? Tick. So it's definitely one of the most comprehensive of standards that's out there, and it's definitely fundamental to security compliance. So I think Google Cloud, when you put your data, into the cloud, guidelines are enforced, and you should know that your data is secure. Google are continuously, improving and evolving to adapt. And you can find this on the Google Compliance Resource Center, and it really just showed the magnitude of standards that Google has to comply to. They're not just being audited once a year, they're being audited and reviewed continuously. So it just gives you a little bit of confidence to know that when you're putting your data in the hands of a cloud provider like the likes of Google Workspace or GCP, that your data is going to be secure. And I wanted to have a look at, I know we've covered the security command center and some of the alerts stuff, but I wanted to just give a brief overview to these that I think are vital when you're looking at compliance. They're all available in the enterprise SKU, but they're specifically helpful when obtaining the likes of 27001 or GDPR. So I've taken the journey of adopting 27001 as a framework for a few organizations in a previous life that are completely on-premise, and I've first-hand witnessed how complex and time-consuming it can be when searching, correlating, and trying to make sense of the data that they've got. I'd probably say that searching and finding the data they've got is probably the most strenuous of tasks, but is made very simple when looking at putting your data in the cloud, and Google Workspace and the tools that are available can be really effective. So the command center is key when giving sort of tangible insights and dashboards to effectively demonstrate risks and having that reporting function there, amongst a whole host of other features that's available in there. But I think this command center is critical. It's a critical difference when you're looking at sort of either a business or an enterprise SKU. When you get to that enterprise level security, I think it is a feature that's very well and is taken very well from customers. So the second is the alert center. This provides obviously the unified notifications across the board. After all, you can't triage or solve any security incidents or downfalls if you aren't aware of them in the first place. So I think it's really good when being proactive on your critical systems and understanding, what needs changing, what downfalls do we have, and this also helps you when you're trying to become compliant as well. So one of the new ones that has actually come out is the data protection insights, and this is generally available across the board now. And this solution helps proactively create reports that helps admins understand, what sensitive data they've got and where it's stored in their organization, but how they can then make the critical decisions and business decisions off the back of it, and how to protect that data. I won't babble on for too long about that, but I just wanted to put that across. I feel that these three are the key differentiators and things that will definitely help organizations when they're trying to become compliant. So this slide I just wanted to briefly touch upon, and it just shows some of the new security releases that have come or are coming, to show how Google is continuously sort of evolving and enhancing their offering, very similar to the likes of 27001. You have to continuously improve. But it just shows how Google is, endeavoring to simplify tasks for security admins, and will continue to do so moving forward. So things that I think are really crucial to take away from today, and I hope that you've found some food for thought, or you've learned something that you didn't know prior, or you've got some sort of task that you want to take away in the back of it. But I wanted to ask you these three things. So really to understand your capabilities in endpoint management. Now we're all remote working, and it's probably going to be something that we will continue to do moving forward in some capacity. Are your endpoints secure? Have you got the controls in place? To feel confident and sleep well at night, so to speak. And then maybe look at your internal alerting and reporting functions, and see, is this effective enough? Sorry, my cat is trying to get around the laptop. Is this effective, and is there anything that you can do, to make that more effective? And then finally, to evaluate your Google Workspace against your existing tool sets. So as we've all got probably a billion different vendors and different solutions, security solutions in place, but I think it'd be really good for people to maybe take a look at what's available in maybe your already existing SKU or SKUs that you may be transitioned into in Google Workspace. And is there real overlap? Can you look at maybe your endpoint management, and is that available in the SKU that you've got? Because we're all trying to cost save at the end of the day, moving into what has been a very difficult year and moving into 2021. So they would be the 3 points that I'd really like you to take away from today and have a think about, and come back to us or go back to your Google rep. And then lastly, we've got the no obligation one-to-one workshops within Net Primacy. So we always offer these, reach out to us. We're more than happy to have those conversations, whether it's about security or whether you've got a whole host of other queries. Please do reach out to us. We will send, as Kev said, a copy of the security white paper and a recording of this webinar, in case there is, something you want to look back at. And obviously your feedback is really useful for us. We will continue to provide, these knowledge sharing sessions and these webinars, but your opinions to help us improve on them. So we want to know what you want to hear about next, and how we can improve these sessions. So